right. Now we can use this method to kind of enhance other lines, but pretty much this is good enough. All right, now what we're going to do is use a feature to color our drawing here. Now, this feature called Live Paint Bucket is a feature that's very, I would say, underappreciated in Illustrator. It's very useful for us, but yet a lot of persons perhaps forget about this tool, even advanced Illustrator users, right? So what the Live Paint tool is, it uses the ability to, it basically gives us the ability to fill, to use a paint bucket to fill certain enclosed areas, right? And to give that, if we should look at a little example over here, if I have a bunch of squares, and you can do this example here, you can try this example for yourself. Now obviously I have different squares here, and these are all different shapes. However, where they intersect, like here and here, they form new shapes. However, we are unable to easily fill in this intersected shape. And this is what the Live Paint Bucket allows us to do. Because currently Illustrator, if we should just allow these shapes to intersect, there's no way to only fill in the areas that are intersected, that are intersecting. Now the Live Paint Bucket is located as a subtool here under the Shape Builder tool. So if we click and hold, we should be able to hover over to Live Paint Bucket, and now we're using the Live Paint Bucket tool. Now, very carefully, how the Live Paint Bucket tool works, if you try to use the Paint Bucket tool now, it's basically not going to work. What you have to do is use your direct selection tool first. So step one, you use your direct selection, your selection tool rather. Select all of the elements that you want to be a part of the Live Paint group. Then you go to your Live Paint Bucket, and notice you get this message that says click to make a Live Paint group. Now once you click this, notice that you can now hover over these different areas, and what happens now, if I use my color picker and just pick a color, I am now able to fill in these individual areas even though there are individual shapes. So you can do this little test here to kind of get a feel of how the Live Paint group works. Essentially what it did, it created a group. So this is actually a special group here. I can move it around. However, I can still go inside the group. So to go inside this group, I can double click. And now I'm inside this group, and I'm still able to move these shapes around. And yet it will keep the colors that were assigned to the intersecting areas. And that is a major cool feature. And we can really utilize that a lot, especially in architecture, to help color our buildings. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, there is one more concept that we need to understand in order to, before we start to color our shape. Now, I want to explain a little bit about color, because yes, we can turn this into a Live Paint group and we're now able to color these elements here, but how do we know what color to use? All right, so color is a major it is a major skill. Choosing the right color is a major skill that we eventually develop in this design field. And Illustrator actually has the tools to help us be better color pickers. In other words, better designers. Now, what I'm about to show you here is actually a tip that has existed in Illustrator, I think, since its inception. And it's also a little secret that if you're trying to determine what colors go well together, Illustrator has the ability to assist you, to help you to do that. So if we as designers were faced with this problem where we're trying to decide what color should we paint this building in, if you think about it, it's the same kind of question we might ask ourselves: what color shirt should I wear with these shoes? Or what color furniture should I get? What color bedspread should I get to match this curtain? So there are many design problems that exist that is centered around color selection. And what happened, Illustrator has, I call it the dynamic trio of tools that can help us to select the correct color without even breaking a sweat. Now, to use this skill, so these three tools, or rather three panels, is the color panel. The next one is the swatches panel. And the last one is the color guide panel. So with these three panels, you can passively always select the correct color in whatever application you're using color. It could be with architecture, with fashion, with fabric, doesn't really matter. The way how these tools work, it works using the color theory, and your selections, if driven by color theory, will automatically always work. Okay, so in order to let this work, and I'll show you an example here, the first thing that you need to do is decide, let's put these three panels over here, as we're going to be using three of them to help with this. We're going to minimize the other panels here, and we're going to just attach these three panels together here.
6 p.m.
All right, there we go. So we're going to put these panels over here. Okay, so now we have our icons organized. Let's put this layer one over here. Right, now we have our icons organized. Now the first thing we need to do is, if we wanted to decide what color to paint this building and we had no idea what color we want to select, we could always start with a theme. Now to do that, you're going to choose the library icon, which is here. It is a sub icon under the swatches menu. So when we select that, this is where you select a theme. So let's say you wanted to use colors that are based in nature. Well, you could go in the nature category, and what subcategory? How about seasons? Well, what you would notice that Illustrator does, it gives you a library of these colors that would be considered under the seasons category. And right away, you have a range of colors to pick from. And within each row are colors that are pretty much made to go together. So you could just basically select one row here and color your building that color. Now, the next step that we would use, let's say that we might like one color out of this set here, but maybe we don't like the other colors in the row. Well, so I'm gonna pick let's choose a kind of burnt orange color, maybe earthy burnt orange. Maybe that's too dark, maybe that one. So let's say that this is the color that I like here. Now notice when I select that color, it also shows up on my swatches here, and it is also highlighted on my color guide here, and it tells us here on my color panel what range of cyan, magenta, yellow, and key black was used to create this color. So right away, I have a lot of information on this one color that I have selected. Now, because of these tools, I can now get the perfect color that I want. So the next step would be to use my color panel here, and I'm going to go into my color my panel options, and I'm going to change it to HSB, hue, saturation, and brightness. And what this is saying, this is telling me the amount of hue, the amount of saturation, and the amount of brightness that was used to get this color here, which is a color that I selected over here, which was based on a theme that was seasons. So you can kind of see how the seasons kind of led me down this path, the seasons theme. Now, if I don't quite like this particular color, I can always tweak the saturation or the brightness to get the exact tone that I like. However, notice that I started from this tone here, and I started from this theme here, but I don't have to pick this particular color. I can use my color panel here to just slightly give me the exact feel that I wanted. So let me go, let's say that I wanted this kind of a very pastel-y kind of brown. There. Now once I have this color that I've now configured using the color panel, I can now save it to my swatches here. And how I save it? Well, all I need to do is to drag it into my swatches panel. So I just click this color and drag it here. So now I have saved the color. Now I have saved this color here. And you could repeat this process a number of times to save whatever color you might like. So now that you've selected a color that you definitely want to be in this building, how do I know what colors complement this color that I've selected here? Well, this is where the color guide comes in. Now, if you notice on the color guide, it always displays the color that you have currently selected. Then right beside it, it shows you a list of colors that go well together based on color theory. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we click on this down arrow here, notice on the left side of this is the color that you've selected, and on the right are the matching colors based on the color theory. And that color theory is used to drive these selections. So let's say that you want to use the triad color theory here. Well, using the triad color theory, these are the colors that go well with the color that I have selected. Now I can say, oh, I really like this green, so I'm going to select it and drag it out here. I like this purple, I'm going to drag it out here. And I like this dark brown here, I'm going to drag it out here. So right away, just by configuring one color, I was able to select multiple colors that matches the one color that I've selected. And I didn't even have to necessarily memorize my color theory. Illustrator did that for me. All right, so now that I have my colors that I like, my next step would be to now use the live paint bucket to now color my elevation. Now in order to do this, first, if you remember the steps, I'm gonna select the layer, or I currently have it locked. So I need to, now that I've finished using these swatches, I can close up this window here. I don't need this window anymore. And let's maximize this window here. There we go. So if I go to my elevation drawing, I'm going to unlock that layer, select the elevation drawing, and then I'm going to use my live paint bucket tool, which is that. And remember, it is a sub tool under the shape builder tool if you don't see it. And I'm going to click once. Now remember this, once I click, it's going to say make a live paint group. I just need to click once. Now once I do that, this is now a single group. If I use my direct selection tool and click, the entire thing now acts as one group. However, now I'm able to use my live paint tool and I can now fill in the different sections here. So remember that I had used my swatches and I had selected the color that I liked. So I'm going to color my main wall this color. Now, interestingly enough, this wall here is really at an angle. So ideally, I would want this to be a darker shade to signify that this is slant. Now, to do that, I can simply just use my color guide, and I just need to choose a darker tone based on this color I have selected here. There we go. Maybe that's too dark. Let me go up another notch. Actually, that is the same color. Yep, this is the next notch down. So that would be the color there. There we go. And I can start to use from my swatches some of these colors that I have selected here. So I kind of had this darker color here I'm going to use for the rim. And let's try this in, yeah, so let's try this over here in this color here, and like that. All right, great. Now, in order to do the roof, let's say that I want to make the roof a kind of burgundy color, right? Now you could do the same process again, and in the swatches panel you could use your library and look for a color here that you want to use. Let's look on the earth tone. Here we go. So I could find a nice earth tone color I want to use for the roof. Maybe this kind of orange here. And once I've selected it, I can drag it and add it to my library, to my swatches there. And now I'm able to click and color the roof. Now you might notice that you have to be clicking a while, clicking a lot here. But what you can do is click and hold. And when you click and hold, it will actually do a multiple selection so that you don't have to click a lot of times. There we go. Oops, I think I have selected, so I did an undo there. There we go. And I could do the same here. So it almost acts like a brush when I click and hold. Now to make this a little nicer, what I could do is I can use my color guide tool and choose, if you can see, this is my color here. So this color matches this color. In my color guide is the center. You can see it with a little arrow there, and going this way would be going lighter, and going this way would be going darker. So let's go one shade up, and then I will color again. So you notice I can get like a kind of mixed shingle look there. So you realize the color guide can be used to kind of step up or step down your color selections. So you can kind of move the mouse a little quickly to give it a kind of a random feel. Now let's say that I accidentally colored my fascia board here with the same color as the roof. I mean, because I had the swatches saved, I can just go back to my swatches here, select back my brown color, I think it was that one, and voila. All right, let's continue with the roof. All right, so once you have that all done, next we perhaps need to do the windows. So we could use the same library feature. This time we could choose something like perhaps something like skies on the gradients. Maybe choose something like that, maybe. There we go. Oops, we don't want to color the frames in that color. Maybe not, so maybe a flat color would work a bit better. So let's go back to the library, and we could select something under let's go nature, and let's try beach. And on the beach, yep, we do have some kind of beachy blue colors. So let's try this now, and this will give us a kind of flat color, which, oops, let's undo, which may work. You know, it's going to be up to your preference to choose what color you would want here. There we go. Okay, now for the stone wall, perhaps we could, under the same beach color, we could pick some tones here, and then we could use a different tone for the backdrop. So that would kind of give a interesting mix for our stones, so that it has this kind of interesting color. You can maybe try grays, or maybe even some gradients to let it look a bit diverse. There we go. Now remember, all of these lines are actually coming from AutoCAD, but we're able to repurpose them more creatively when it comes into Illustrator. So that is quite awesome. Okay, now next, what we would want to do is perhaps get some entourage in this image. And if you look in your working folder, remember these images here, we actually have some vehicles in elevation. So for example, this car here, I can download it. And if I open it up, that's what it looks like. And I can copy this PNG here, and I can paste it in my drawing here. Let's resize it. And you want to hold shift so you keep the ratio. Oh, actually, you're not going to get the transparent background, so let us find where it is and drag it into our scene here. Right, so now it comes in with the transparency. Rather than using the copy, just find where you downloaded it and copy it in. Oops, remember to hold shift so that it remains. And you want to get your scale correctly. I think it's about that. So as you can see, there are many other assets in this folder, including persons in elevations, trees. So for example, you could grab this tree here, as well as you can get trees from the internet. And I can drag that in, and I can resize that there and perhaps drop there. And of course, if I wanted to put it behind, I can actually create a layer called tree and place it on that layer, so that way I can choose to put it behind or in front of my drawing. So with that said, what I want you to do is to populate this drawing to now let it look a bit more architecturally rich. And what I'm doing here is just creating some more content. So I'm going to have a layer called people, and I'm going to put this person here on that layer. There we go. I can put this layer on top, and I can better position this layer. I'm using the arrow keys to manipulate the layer. In this scenario, I would have to have I would call this people. BG for maybe background. And this layer now, I would put them behind the elevation layer so that they are pretty much behind that layer there. Now of course I would need to fill this in, so I would need to go back to this layer here and use my paint bucket tool, and perhaps I can even fill this with a white color. So let's get a closer color to white and maybe fill like that. To fill these balcony items here, I could maybe use a gradient, maybe a gradient earth tone, like maybe that. No, that's a bit too heavy. So like that, so that it has a nice curved look. There we go. There we go. All right. Now you can use the transform option up here to quickly resize these, and I'm actually using, here we go. Let's see. Well, you can use the transform to position it, but you would need to, no, you wouldn't be able to use this one here. You would have to use the transform panel. Here we go. If I can remember correctly, here we go. There we go. Right, and I'm using the mouse wheel. That's actually the same thing here. Actually, it was this side, right? I'm using the mouse wheel to make it smaller. So you can actually, instead of dragging to position it, you could use the transform panel and your mouse wheel to kind of get it in the right location and the right scale. Oops. I think I may have squashed it there. Let's undo that. There we go. Right. So you want to make sure that it is always locked. The width and the scale is always locked. Sometimes it does give a little trouble. There we go. Maybe one more. Now in this case, if I want to get back this exact color, I could use the pipette tool first and then use the paint bucket tool next. So I use the pipette tool first and then use the paint bucket tool. There we go. Oops. There we go. And that may be a bit too strong. And when you get used to it, you can use your shortcut keys. So the shortcut key for this is the K button. There we go. All right, now what needs to happen is for the plan